Hello, good evening. This is an informational meeting of the Augusta City Council, and today is Thursday, July 23rd, 2026. We'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you again. All right. We have Councilor Judkins is joining us on Zoom tonight, and we'll try to make sure that we include him, or I include him in whatever discussions we have. And Councilor Gary Allen is absent for tonight. So we do have a full agenda, so let me run through the agenda tonight, preview what we're going to be talking about, and explain any ground rules. So we have three parts to our informational meetings. The first part is Part A, which is persons wishing to address the City Council have submitted a formal request to do so in accordance with our Code of Ordinances. And we do have a pair tonight, Cormac Manning and Ted Campbell, to discuss their request for a public hearing on ranked choice voting. Our second portion of our agendas is B, open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council. And if there are any, we'll ask you to come up to the podium, identify yourself and where you're from, speak directly into the microphone, please. And comments will be limited to 5 minutes or less during that open comment period. Finally is Part C, which is items that have been submitted by the City Council or the City Manager, and we have 6 of those tonight. The first will be Main Recovery Access Center first year update. Second will be 2 sets of land use ordinance amendments. Third is the Water Street first floor residential ordinance changes. Fourth is low barrier shelter request for proposals, RFP discussion. Fifth is the opioid settlement task force report. And finally, discussion of impact fees. All right, so with that, we return to the top of the agenda. Persons wishing to address the City Council have submitted a formal request to do so. We invite Cormac Manning and Ted Campbell to the podium, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cormac Manning. I live in Greenleaf Street.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ted Campbell. I live on Columbia Street. I graduated from Coney High School in 2023. We are here to respectfully request to hold a public hearing on the pros and cons of ranked choice voting for Augusta's municipal elections. We know that you have a long agenda tonight, so we'll be brief as possible. Our goal is not to make a pitch on ranked choice voting itself, just the idea of holding a public hearing to discuss it fully and listen to as many voices as possible. Thank you very much for all of your consideration so far. We appreciate the meetings that we've had with councilors to date. Thank you. We're looking forward to speaking with those councilors who've expressed interest in meeting but haven't had a chance to nail down a solid meeting time yet. We understand that you have we understand that you have very busy schedules and roles. From our conversations so far, it seems that there is interest among councilors in at least getting further information. We would therefore like to request that a public hearing be held on ranked choice voting. You've heard a lot from us, but this would be a chance to hear from a broader range of people. It would allow both supporting and opposing views to be offered. We would also hope to be able to get someone who is familiar with implementation in other municipalities to come and answer questions on their experiences.
Because this might involve a potential amendment to the Charter, our understanding is that, a little bit unusually, a decision to hold a public hearing would need to be done via formal vote of the Council. We'd really like to emphasise that that would be a vote on whether or not to hold a public hearing to get more information, not a vote on what you think of the merits or otherwise the proposal itself. That could be decided after the hearing once you have got more information to make an informed decision. So therefore, we would like to courteously request that you consider a vote to hold a public hearing at the next business meeting. If you chose to do so, a public hearing could take place at a date that you choose, but presumably later in August. And state law would give you a 7-day period after the public hearing to decide whether or not you wish to progress the idea further. That would be your decision. But we do really hope that a public hearing would be of assistance in helping you make an informed decision on the topic itself. as Ted said, you've heard a lot from us. I think it would be beneficial to hear from everybody else who wants to share an opinion on this too. So that would be our respectful request. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions from councilors? Councilor Michoud?
I believe you haven't given up on getting signatures to get it on the ballot. Are you choosing to go in a different direction than that?
Yeah, so as you may recall from the previous time that we were speaking with you, there was a request from a lot of members of the council to ask for dialogue with councillors rather than go down the petition route. We would like to listen to that request, and that would be the primary thing we would like to do. If that is still what councillors would like to do, we would like to, that's where we're investing our energies. If it would be helpful to progress that discussion, the petition doesn't necessarily have to keep on going at full speed in the meantime. Like I said, there's requests from councillors to engage in conversation instead. That's what we're seeking to do.
Yeah, because I thought that you pulled the petitions for removing the ward councils, but we're going forward with the ranked choice. So I understand.
And just to clarify, just to make sure everybody else understands as well, I guess what we are doing is primary route. We would like to see if there's a place we can find common ground. That's what we were requested to do. That's what we would like to see if we can do.
So well, let me be clear, gentlemen. So are you talking about wanting a public hearing pursuant to the statute? Or are you just talking about like a community forum or a workshop?
I think doing it according to the statute would leave the council with the most options afterwards. So I think that would be the most useful to allow an informed decision to be made on what route you want to take subsequently.
So my reading of the statute suggests that the public hearing comes after that the municipal officers have already decided that the issue will be considered, whether by the council or at referendum. That's when the public hearing is appropriate. If the council hasn't decided that we want to go forward with ranked choice voting, there would not be a reason to have a public hearing. Do you agree?
That's not my reading of it. My reading of it is that the council believes it should be considered in the sense of it deserves further debate. And I think the statute is pretty clear that then afterwards there's that 7-day period. The council decides yes or no, does this stop here or does it go further? That's my reading of it. But
Well, the 7 days, with respect to 7 days, says within 7 days after the hearing, the municipal officers may order that the proposed amendment be placed on the ballot at the next regular municipal election, or they may order that a special election be held. So that sounds like there's only two choices after the public hearing. It's just how it's going to be considered, not whether it'll be considered.
would welcome further clarity on it, but that's not our understanding. But we think a public forum and debate would be helpful. That's certainly not the understanding that we had of the statute, but obviously we will.
Well, a public forum or a workshop or a community forum that you guys want to sponsor, that would be something different, in my estimation, than the public hearing process that's called for under the statute. And I don't want people confused by us having a public hearing when we haven't decided that that's an issue that's going to go forward either by a council vote or a referendum.
I think certainly, and obviously we would defer to the Corporation Council's advice, but our understanding is that the statute says if the council believes that the issue should be considered, they have a choice to hold a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, they can decide, is it on the ballot, is it not? That's our reading of it. I guess what I would say is if in order for this to be done in a timely manner, our request would be that it would be considered within the next meeting. I would hope that we could be able to get more clarity on exactly the legal language. That's certainly our honest understanding of it, but would welcome clarity on it.
Okay. Other questions from councilors? Counselor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Cormac, let's just assume for a moment that you're correct. So my concern is this. I don't recall having a public hearing, as the mayor put it, to seek information. That'd be a workshop or an informational meeting. The concern I have is probably the impression that this could give, or the misperception somehow that the council's in favor of moving forward with ranked choice voting. That's what I'm a little worried about when you say formal hearing. It's kind of a veiled request in a way, because you're not really seeking input. You're starting the charter change. It's a formal start to the charter change. If you really want to get public input, have a forum or a workshop. My concern is the formality in which you're asking. You're really starting the charter change. Your objective is to get it on the ballot for November. And if you really want to hear from people, have a forum, or have it presented as a workshop. So that's the direction I would go in. I would not be in favor of having a public hearing if we're not going to be taking action on anything. I just think that is bad practice and not something that I ever recall us doing. So that's my position on it. I just want you to know that straight up. So thank you.
Others?
Thank you for your feedback, Counselor.
And I guess for what it's worth, I think we would certainly, in anybody we were talking to, make absolutely clear our understanding. Obviously, again, we would like to seek further legal clarity, but our understanding is that the step to hold a public hearing is not saying in favor or against, saying this should be considered, and that subsequently there is a vote to say this is something we want, this is something we don't. I assume the intent behind it is that the public hearing helps inform the vote. I don't think it would make much sense if the statute was set out that the council had to make their mind up on the issue and then hold a public hearing, because the public hearing wouldn't serve any purpose if people had already taken the substantive policy decision beforehand. If that makes sense, the public hearing, I don't see what the function of that would be. But we would welcome further clarity on that.
I submit that one purpose of the public hearing would be to help the council decide whether they're going to decide whether it's going to be placed on the ballot or order a special election. But anyway, you made your pitch, council's heard it, and they can decide amongst themselves if they want to take that next step. Anything else?
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
All right, that's the only formal request that we've had to be on the agenda. So we'll move next to Part B, open comment person for any persons wishing to address the city council.
Hi, I'm Jane Whiteside. I've been here previously, and I'm glad to see, just to follow up on the last time, I sent some information to the council about the DEP person that might be a contact for drug disposal boxes in restaurants or fast food restaurants. I'm glad to see, I looked over your website, glad to see your improvement in businesses with the Rowe Institute, Downtown Alliance. Just a reminder to people that there's organization New Ventures Maine, which also is affiliated with the University of Maine system, and it can help individually with businesses. Glad that there's more effort on the cleanup and just reminder that sometimes maybe in healthcare, in settings, in restaurants, in the clinician community, in like mental health, I believe there is sometimes clients can meet with their clinicians at the restaurant of their choice. So sometimes that is occurring at like fast food restaurants, coffee shops, et cetera. And just as a reminder, I think the Azimuth Foundation did clarify, they had a paper, maybe they're coming up here, clarify how their program works on private properties such as restaurants in between code enforcement and owners. And just a reminder, I hope that you'll continue coordination, work all the time, work on that police, code enforcement, Maine Health Inspection Service, which is a state organization, Maine Department of Labor, which is the labor rules like in restaurants, and of course, state police and federal authorities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from councilors? Hearing none. No, all set. Next, Mr. Donlin.
It's been a while since I've been in this chambers. Good evening, councilors, mayor, city manager Mills. My name is Leif Eric Dowland. I live at 15 Cathy Street here in Augusta. I've been here 25 years, and what a privilege it's been. My heritage is Maine, New Sweden, Maine, where in 1870 my ancestors came to Maine and settled there along with 50 other Swedes. And my dad was so proud of Maine, and I am so proud of being here as well. But it's time, after 25 years, to take my bride home. She is a Vermont girl, and we've raised 6 adults. We have 10 grandbabies, and half of them live in Vermont. Her parents live in Vermont, and sisters and other family members are in Vermont. So we've decided, after my wife retired after 25 years of educator at Huzzy Elementary and a couple other schools here in Augusta, she retired this past June. So it's time. But I have to say some thank yous before I can leave this town. First, I got to thank my Lord and Savior, my Jesus Christ, who guided my life from when I was a little boy. I'm so grateful for my parents, for the world they brought me up in. And he has checked me on so many times when I've tried to go a different way, but he'd bring me back. And he brought me to Augusta back in 2001. Bill Briggio, who I'm forever grateful for, brought me here in 2001 to take on this job as Director of Community Services, which was such a privilege to do. Second person I got to thank, though, is my wife, Lisa. She came here with me. I stole her from Vermont. And again, we brought the kids over and just had a marvelous, wonderful existence, and what a privileged existence. Mentioned Bill Briggio. Got to thank some of my fellow department heads here who I had such a wonderful time with, and we worked together so well. Bill Briggio built a team that was, in my opinion, second to none. And so many of the staff, whether it was the police department, city services, economic development, all of it, we had to work together to get the job done for the residents of our wonderful community. Mr. Mayor, you personally have been a big part of my life on many levels, whether it was a care board or other organizations that we did things with. City councilors, how many times have I come to you? Always through the city manager, though. Bill always made sure we didn't go directly. He had a wonderful policy, and he worked it beautifully. But you were such a big part of my life as well. And so many city councilors that have, if you will, come and gone. But each one of you have enriched my life and been so wonderful. The various organizations that I was privileged to work with, whether it was CARA, Capital Area Rec Association, Kennebec River Rail Trail, Augusta Trails, Elks Club, you name it, Rotary Club. How many times did we have the opportunity just to do some good, great, fun things together, again, for the quality of life of our community? And that was the name of my department, Quality of Life Department, truly. I thank every Augusta resident who lives in this town and who is a taxpayer. They paid my wages, they paid my salary, and I did my best to give them the best bang for their buck my years that I was here. And I was here 20 years to the day. Over the years, and I did this just about 40 years, whether it was here or in Vermont or in Amherst, Massachusetts, periodically someone would ask me, what was the most important part of your job? My answer was very easy. Protecting and preserving the public trust. That was a number one job that we had, that we could look anybody straight in the eye. My budgets were always open. You could come in and take a look at anything. But the way I tried to live that public trust was, and I'm proud of myself because I learned early on with one little hiccup I made many, many moons ago, was I never took graft, whether it was a free lunch, some kind of gift or whatever. I couldn't do it because that was preserving the public trust. And I'm far richer for that than otherwise. I'm so rich because of that policy that I had for myself. I never took a dime from anyone, again, be it in a gift or a lunch or whatever. I couldn't do it. This has been one of the greatest chapters of my life, and I've had some wonderful chapters in my life. it's just been a marvelous, marvelous existence I've had in Augusta. I know I got 5 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up real quick, Mr. Mayor. I've got the city manager. I now call him the Promise Keeper. And I'm going to give you two examples of why I call him the Promise Keeper. The first one is fairly recent. He made a promise to me a few months ago when I was upset about the grass at the police department. It just didn't come in. It wasn't working for me. I've had the privilege the last 3 years of doing some work downtown, and it's been a wonderful situation for me. Physically, mentally, it's just been marvelous. But I was never happy with the grass. And I went to Jared about it, and he made a promise. Leaf, we're going to take care of it, and he has. Now, I only ask you to monitor it, maybe through Matt or whoever, just to make sure that grass comes in, but that police department deserves the best grass in the city, and I thank you for that promise. The other promise, and I'll see if you remember this one. This is when he was deputy chief. I think it was June 30th, and I think it was about 2010. The Bondbrook Recreation Area was well under development. We had the beautiful trails put in. We were beginning to have races there and do other wonderful things with it. And we had built a timing shack. And this is Mike Seitsinger and Bill Rogers and a host of other wonderful characters helped put this project together, raised a lot of money. City had some funds. We used timber receipts from the project to help build Bondbrook. And that is a jewel. That is a jewel in the rough that's still got more opportunity there. But anyways, we had a couple mischief makers out there, and I brought out there game cameras, and I started to use game cameras. I was probably one of the pioneers in this town with game cameras, because I was not going to let mischief makers screw with our park. And I caught a few folks, but there was one that was escalating, and I would get him on camera, and we had built a timing shack, a really nice timing shack for races. And he was going to burn it down. I knew it. And I had the cameras, and I moved them that night, and I went up there that evening, and I went into a bush. I was hiding in a little ravine. I had my sleeping bag, and I had a baseball bat, and I was going to get this guy. That's how passionate I am about what I've had the privilege to do. And I was going to get this guy. Well, who shows up but the deputy chief? And he comes in, and he says, Leaf, I can't have you in here. I said, Jared, he's going to burn this building down tonight. I'm telling you right now. He said, Leaf, I promise you we will catch him. If he does, we will get him. 4:30, so I went home. He convinced me to go home. And 4:30 in the morning, though, I got a phone call. And it was fully inflamed, that timing shack. But guess what? Got pictures of him, and guess what helped? The fire flames lit that guy right up, and we had good pictures of him. And then on July 4th, when we're getting ready for the 4th of July parade, one of the officers comes and says, we got him. And tragically, the young man paid the dues for what he decided to do. So, Jared, you kept that promise as well, sir, and I thank you for that. With that said, again, thank you.
Thank you, Leaf. All right, who dares to go next? Is it still further opportunity for open comment? If anybody would like to take advantage of it at this time. Okay. All right, let's move right to our items listed on the agenda and under Part C. C1 is the Main Recovery Access Center first year update. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll invite our folks from the Main Recovery Access Center to come up with a presentation. I will say a little bit of mistake on my part. They do have a presentation, and I've handed that out to you all. I didn't get that on Monday, so we were unable to upload that, and I do apologize. We had that discussion just before. So you have that in your packet as they go through it, so.
I feel like that's a little bit of a hard act to follow. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, City Manager, and members of the community. My name is Caitlin Callahan. I am the Director of the Main Recovery Access Projects Access Center right here at 47 Water Street. For over 25 years, my career has been defined by caring for others. Beginning in healthcare and shifting 6.5 years ago to specialize in supporting those with substance use disorder and in recovery. Rooted in my own lived experience and proudly celebrating 11 years of sustained recovery today, my work is driven by empathy, advocacy, and my own lived understanding. Before joining the Access Center in June, I served as program supervisor for Maine's largest healthcare system, leading a statewide team of certified intentional peer support specialists and recovery coaches. Credentials I also carry. Together, we met individuals wherever they were on their path, supporting those in active use and recovery alike. My commitment to systemic change extends across the state and into my own city. For the past 3 years, I have served as a subject matter expert for the state of Maine's Maternal, Infant, Fetal Mortality Review Panel, and since 2023, I have had the privilege of serving my own community as a city councilor. I'm happy to be here tonight with our board chair, Reagan LaRochelle, and our policy director, Tess Parks. And we aren't here alone. Our incredible team is sitting in the audience tonight, and they are the ones doing the heavy lifting every single day behind our yellow door. I want to ask my team to please stand up so the council and community can see the folks doing this work day in and day out. And all our volunteers, please stand up. Thank you. Before we dive into our 1-year data, I want to ground us in who we are as an organization. MIRAP is a grassroots network of Mainers working on public policy and community-based solutions to substance use. We were founded in 2020 through a fiscal sponsorship. In 2025, MIRAP became an independent nonprofit organization, allowing us to expand our impact. Today, MIRAP leads 4 core programs: the Access Center, community organizing, statewide advocacy, and the Youth Caucus. Through these programs, we provide direct support services, build community, support youth leaders, and advance policies that improve the lives of people impacted by substance use across Maine. Beyond our center walls, MIRAP leads statewide organizing and advocacy across Maine, bringing essential resources and connection directly to the community. We operate Project Doorstep to deliver life-saving naloxone via door-to-door canvassing, and we coordinate a vibrant youth caucus specifically for young people ages 18 and under, along with their guardians who have been impacted by substance use. Additionally, we run a robust volunteer program featuring a ticket incentive program where community members can earn essential items like phones, phone cards, and laundry cards by giving back, whether that's cleaning up our own local neighborhoods or supporting day-to-day operations at the Access Center. Through all of our work, MIRAP seeks to address systemic change while delivering daily hands-on support. A year ago, we turned the key, opened a yellow door in downtown Augusta, and made a promise that recovery is for everyone, not just those who can navigate a complex system or check every box, but everyone. 1 year later, that promise is alive every single day behind that same yellow door. We built this place for dignity, for safety, and for connection, and for our community, and our community built it right alongside us. What was once a long, vacant downtown building has become a vibrant, people-powered community hub shaped by and for the people who find community there. Let me be completely transparent about who we are. We are an organization run by and led by people with lived and living experience. In intentional peer support, we operate on the truth that our shared experiences create a unique framework for connection. The people running our space share the same life experiences as those walking through our doors. We are simply navigating different points on our path to wellness. This isn't a deficit. It's a highly valuable, professional, and unique skill set. It allows our staff to sit with people in the thick of difficult things and walk alongside them as equals on their journey to wellness. We don't just rely on gut instinct. Everything we do is evidence-based and backed by hard data. When we opened our doors, we set an initial internal baseline expectation of 3,650 total check-ins for our first year. Instead, the community need blew that goal out of the water. Our actual volume was over 4 times what we anticipated, logging exactly 16,700 total center drop-ins from 1,093 unique individuals. What happened behind that yellow door this year is bigger than any one of us. It was built by volunteers, neighbors, and community members who showed up day after day because they believe everyone deserves dignity and a place to land. That's the heart of this organization. And tonight we're here to show you exactly what people-powered community care looks like. When you build something brand new to address deep systemic challenges rooted in generational trauma, there's going to be a learning curve. We had to grow exponentially and we had to do it fast because we are addressing a massive community need that we did not create, but that we absolutely showed up to meet. Let's look at the hard data of our first year compared to what we initially projected. As I mentioned a moment ago, we set an expectation of 3,650 total check-ins for the year. We far exceeded that projection. As I said, we logged 16,702 total drop-in engagements, driven by 1,093 unique individual visitors accessing the center. We set a modest target for community cleanups monthly. Instead, our robust volunteer program completely shattered that benchmark, clearing thousands of pounds of debris from our neighborhoods during 80 community cleanups we hosted. We projected steady incremental connections to outside services, but because of radical trust and mutual relationships our staff built, we directly facilitated, often same day, transitions into residential treatment and stable housing for 107 individuals who had previously been entirely disconnected from care or unhoused. In the last 2 weeks, that number has grown. We hosted over 385 recovery-based meetings with 5,305 total attendees. We provided 98 rides to treatment, again, with the help of our volunteer crew. We distributed 5,234 doses of naloxone into the community, each one representing a chance to save a life and keep a neighbor alive and with us. We provided wound care 669 times to individuals. Count your blessings if you've never suffered a medical wound that you were unable to or too ashamed to seek treatment for due to stigma. People we love and care for lose their lives from preventable infections every day. We provided 929 showers, 961 incidences of access to personal secured storage, and 97 phones and phone cards. From July 1st of 2025 to June 30th of 2026, we distributed 21,950 sterile syringes and disposed of 37,840 used syringes. Much of this would not have been possible without our more than 130 volunteers who show up each and every single day alongside us. These numbers represent thousands of incidences of people coming off the streets, coming out of isolated areas across the city, and stepping into a structured, supportive environment of hope every day. We run a highly intentional, structured operation. We are open Tuesday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. From 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., our participant services are fully operational. That includes our harm reduction resources, showers, clothing closets, and personal storage. On the weekdays that we are open, we close from 4 to 5 for a deep clean and reset. Tuesday through Thursday, that hour is a strict operational transition. At 5 p.m., when we reopen and the focus shifts to peer recovery support, community resources, and recovery meetings on both Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. On Wednesday evenings from 5 to 7 when we reopen, we host our youth caucus. This time is dedicated specifically for young people ages 18 and under and their guardians who have been impacted by substance use. On Fridays and Saturdays, our hours shift from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. when we focus fully on recovery supports and community services. During these evening and weekend blocks, the community expectation is that everyone in the space actively participates in or respects the recovery activities happening around them. Accountability also happens outside our walls. Every single morning we are open, our volunteer coordinator takes 1 or 2 participants out for a meticulous morning cleanup sweep of the surrounding neighborhood, ensuring we take care of our shared streets first thing. We are also highly responsive when a local business calls to request a cleanup. We send staff and volunteers over as soon as possible. In addition, anyone is welcome to drop off used syringe waste at the Access Center during our open hours. During our closed hours, we maintain a secured, sharp disposal box right outside our yellow door. I want to address some comments that have been made here recently. We never turn away folks who come to safely dispose of syringe waste unless an individual's primary intent is to disrupt our space or compromise the safety of our participants, volunteers, and staff. Because we host anonymous, confidential recovery meetings, we strictly prohibit recording in our center, which is clearly posted on our front door. When individuals show up recording during a recovery meeting, refuse to stop, and refuse to leave, we will engage a trespass order. We have an ethical duty to protect the privacy of individuals accessing our space and to keep that space a safe, effective community resource. We cannot and will not allow the safety of our community to be compromised. We have never refused to take syringe waste from anyone who hasn't previously proven to be a direct safety risk to our participants, and I feel that distinction needed to be addressed clearly and strongly. As a reminder to the public, there are multiple avenues for safe disposal in Augusta. In addition to our site, you can return syringe waste to the hospital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or to the Maine General Harm Reduction Program, which has been operating safely here in Augusta for the last 20 years. In addition, in the state of Maine, you can legally dispose of used syringes by placing them in a heavy-duty, puncture-proof plastic container like a Tide bottle or milk jug, sealing it tightly with tape and labeling it "Do Not Recycle" and placing it in your regular household trash. That is fully safe, responsible, and legal. The Access Center does not operate in isolation. We collaborate closely with our incredible community partners like the Bread of Life, UCLC, Link, and the Emergency Warming Shelter to ensure we are weaving a seamless safety net of care for Augusta's community. When a crisis hits the city, MERAP steps up to fill the gap. During the freezing depths of last winter, we quickly pivoted to become the city's primary daytime warming space. And during this most recent historic heat wave, we didn't just stick to routine. We canceled our Wednesday night youth caucus meetings, extended our building hours, and completely bypassed our 4 p.m. cleaning closure to guarantee that human beings had an uninterrupted air-conditioned place to safely survive the heat. We are also moving forward. While community outreach is core to what MIRAP has always done, we have officially launched our targeted 3,000 door knocking campaign right here in Augusta. We are going neighborhood to neighborhood to connect face to face with residents, building mutual trust, listening to community needs, and distributing life-saving tools like naloxone. We are deeply invested in building real trust, lasting bridges with our downtown neighbors and business owners. Being a good neighbor means showing up. Our team makes it a priority to actively participate in community events across Augusta. We've worked hard to demonstrate our commitment to the city to the point where the Augusta Downtown Alliance has been actively reaching out to us, inviting us to partner and collaborate and assist with various city initiatives. We will be volunteering at several events locations this weekend for the Ironman Triathlon, and we will hope you will stop by our tables to say hello. We have become an intentional part of the fabric of this downtown, and we are here to make the whole community stronger. Our executive director, Courtney Gary Allen, says something that guides every single decision we make. Recovery is for everyone, period. We operate a low barrier, zero judgment space that meets people exactly where they are, because offering someone humanity, compassion, and basic dignity is the most powerful tool we have for growth. Public health data proves that individuals who access low barrier services are 5 times more likely to engage with sustained long-term recovery programs. Why? Because of the authentic, unbreakable peer connections they build inside those spaces. Harm reduction is a vital pathway to helping people find wellness. At its core, it's rooted in the fierce, unyielding belief that people who use drugs do not deserve to die. It means that even if a person isn't ready or able to change their relationship with substances today, they are still human, and they are still just as deserving of love, safety, and basic human dignity right now. While we frequently measure our success through public health outcomes, we must also recognize the tremendous cost savings preventative care brings to our taxpayers. People use drugs in every community. The choice before us isn't whether drug use exists, but whether people have access to life-saving resources and the non-judgmental support they deserve. Supplying sterile equipment and harm reduction resources prevents complex preventable health conditions, including hepatitis C, HIV, and severe bacterial infections like endocarditis. With the lifetime cost of managing HIV approaching $500,000 per individual, low barrier preventative care saves millions by preventing acute crises before they reach the emergency room. This vital work supports an already overburdened healthcare system and bridges critical gaps for uninsured community members. But most importantly, our center keeps our neighbors alive, reduces municipal healthcare costs, and fosters deep community connection. Thank you, and our leadership welcomes your questions.
Are you two presenting as well, or you want to open it up for questions? Okay. Do councilors have any questions or comments? I have a question. Caitlin, I have a question. What is the relationship between your position and Ms. Gary Allen's position with MIRAP?
Sorry, my mouth was very dry.
Yeah.
I am the center director. Courtney Gary Allen is the executive director of MIRAP, and I think Reagan might be able to take the answer on her position as executive director.
So is the executive director of MIRAP the higher position than the director of the Access Center?
Yes.
So is the Access Center is like just one feature of the MRAP umbrella?
Right.
Okay.
So there's 4 different kind of programs underneath MRAP. And so Caitlin is our new center director, who we're very excited about. Courtney Gary Allen is still the executive director of the organization.
I see. Okay, that helps. There's another question I'm dying to ask, and just because I want to be educated. Are used syringes a health hazard?
So I'm assuming you're talking in the context of waste on the street, or if someone were to use a needle and then pass it over to their friend.
I guess I'm talking about a discarded, used syringe. Does it pose a health hazard to anyone?
So, I think, and I'm Reagan LaRochelle, by the way. I'm the board chair of MRAP. And so I think in reality, while they're unsightly and they remind us of kind of things that maybe we would rather not be reminded of, the research shows that it is very highly unlikely that someone would transmit a disease from a syringe that they stepped on in a park, for example. Just the possibility of contracting any type of disease that way is infinitesimally low. However, I think in reality, and wanting to have a community that is welcoming and feels safe, we, as well as I'm sure the council, would prefer not to have syringe waste, and that's why we've worked so hard to have our community cleanups and incentivize our participants to bring in syringes, even if they're not theirs, in order to reduce that waste that, the community might see.
Does handling used syringes does it require special handling?
There's
You've
special
described like the disposal techniques and bundling up and all that kind of, but just handling them, does that require special handling or
mean,
recommended special handling?
I was going to say, people have special training for disposing of syringe waste and cleaning up, dealing with biohazard essentially. But we, obviously have volunteers who go out, use safety precautions, and are able to pick up waste in our community that way.
Councilor Sinkowitz and then Councilor Mission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for coming and giving this update. It's pretty incredible to see the work that's been done in a year since Councilor Gary Allen gave the first update at, I think, just about the launch of the Access Center. One of the things that came to mind for me is what is next for the Access Center in particular? Are you angling more for stability, or is there a need for more increased growth? Is there a focus for the next year coming up?
I think right now we are just kind of stabilizing. We are very busy. We grew very quickly. We're kind of just getting our feet underneath us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Mission.
I'm going to get back to Mayor O'Brien and just education. Reagan mentioned that it's very, very, very small chance that somebody comes in contact with a used needle that they're going to develop anything. So, just forgive me if I'm ignorant. Why doesn't this person just keep using the same needle over and over again?
Thanks, Councilor Mishu. I don't think that was the scenario that the mayor was speaking of. My interpretation of that was, we see syringe waste in a park in the community. It's been there for a week and a half. Does that pose a great risk? No. Using the same needle over and over again, definitely there's risk for themselves, for the individual, would be infection primarily. And that's when we're talking about issues like sepsis and people dying of very serious infections. So needles are meant to be used one time, and that's what the Access Center helps to promote, to make sure that people stay safe and healthy.
So if a needle is discarded and 5 minutes later somebody comes by and pricks themselves with that needle, they're subjected to potentially what you just said.
I guess in the scenario, yeah, if they wanted to pick it up and prick themselves with it.
Well,
then
I'm saying unintentionally.
I'm sure that's
Okay,
a
thank you.
scenario that could be a factor.
Thank you.
Council Lind.
Again, so a couple things. You're an elected official, I think. Welcome to our city council meeting. Two questions. First, veterans visiting the center. Do you track that, or how do you deal with veterans? Because there are, and I have to say, for the record, I joined the military in 1981, January. The Department of Defense and the VA has done a much better job today than they did then, dealing with all of this. But I know there are separate programs and advocates for veterans, but sometimes they end up in places, lost and looking for help. Do you track veterans? Do you refer veterans? How do you deal with that?
So I actually know you asked this question on February 27th of last year when
Correct.
Councilor Gary Allen was here giving her first presentation. I will have to follow up on you with that. I'm not sure if we track that in RDP, which is our database specifically, but we do have support. So there are case managers that come in specifically to work with veterans. I've actually spoken to several of them this week to support some of our veterans that come into the center. But I can follow up with you in an email. I'd be
Great,
happy
yeah,
to
if
do
you
that.
could. Yep. Second question. So I attended Al-Anon for years, and it helped me tremendously. I ended up going to the Mid-Coast because I just wanted to kind of keep my privacy. But do you offer Al-Anon or do you offer Nar-Anon, which for people that don't realize are support groups for relatives, friends of people that are have substance abuse?
In the folders that I gave you, it has a list of the meetings in there. We do offer,
Al-Anon?
is it Naranon? Naranon
Okay.
is one we offer.
I didn't see Al-Anon, but I encourage you to try to start an Al-Anon group as well. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else at this point? All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you. And I second Councilor Lynn's welcome to Augusta. Hope you find the experience a positive one. And thank you for bringing your staff and volunteers as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Item C2 on our agenda are land use ordinance amendments, dealing with both subdivision regulations and accessory dwelling unit regulations. Mr. Nazar.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. My name is Matt Nazar. I am the Director of Development Services for the City of Augusta. And I'm here to present the memo that you received in your packet that talks about land use ordinance amendments for both subdivisions and accessory dwelling units. These amendments are part of a requirement in order to comply with state law. And the information that the amendments that have been presented to you today are part of a package that will be coming into you over the course of the next 6 to 9 months to year in order to comply with changes that the legislature made to state law with respect to housing issues and communities are required to comply with by July 1st, 2027. So this is our first swing at the first types of issues that we thought were easy to bring before the council. The planning board unanimously recommended these changes, and they are, like I say, primarily in order to comply strictly with state law, and it's an amendment to the definition of a subdivision. And in particular, the biggest changes that you would see there are that subdivisions are now fewer than 5 divisions of a property as opposed to fewer than 3. So previously, you did not have to go through subdivision review with a planning board if you had 3 or fewer, or fewer than 3. Now it's fewer than 5. That actually frees folks up to move forward with development on duplexes in particular. We've had a number of individuals who have requested to move forward with something like this, where they've already got a duplex on a property, would like to put another duplex on the same property, and do not want to have to go through the subdivision review process. This would enable that. Additionally, this also amends the definition or the allowances of an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit. Previously in our ordinance, we were complying with state law where the accessory dwelling units were on any property that had 1, 2, or 3 residential units. Now it's any property that has any residential unit on it would be allowed to have an ADU. So that is a change as well that is proposed here. And the final change that is proposed as part of these sets of recommendations is a simplification of our ordinance. Our ordinance right now splits major and minor subdivisions. So minor subdivisions are usually smaller subdivisions, major subdivisions are larger subdivisions. This combines those two uses or those two definitions into a single definition. So there's just a subdivision review, and standardizes the requirements where there used to be slightly different requirements for minor subdivision review and major subdivision review. This brings those together and makes it easier for applicants who do have to go through subdivision review to just have one set of standards and not have to understand or think about what the differences are. That's it. Any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this, Matt, and please also extend thank you to Betsy and the Planning Board. I know we're complying with state law, but anything that simplifies our ordinances, especially for development, is a good thing. So I'm very excited to move these forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much to my staff as well. I appreciate you mentioning them. They do wonderful work to move this stuff forward. And I just present it to you once they've done the real work.
Also an important part of the job.
And again, these recommendations come with a unanimous recommendation of the planning board.
They
in
do,
each
yes.
instance. Very good. Councilor Lind?
Matt, I think I have a constituent that may be working with the planning office.
Yes,
And I
you
think
do.
if this was in place, we'd probably have 2 more duplexes at Augusta right now, housing for people. So looking
Yes.
forward to getting this going and press. Thank you.
Anything else from councilors? I think you're going to stay with us for the next one?
I am.
Okay. Next one is C3, Water Street First Floor Residential Ordinance Changes.
Again, Matt Nazar, Director of Development Services. You have a memo on this one as well. This is a topic that was sent to the Planning Board as part of a moratorium that the City Council put in place to ensure, it was to address any concerns that might exist with respect to residential dwelling units in the KBD1 zoning district fronting on Water Street. Ensuring that downtowns have a vibrant commercial face to the sidewalk and to the street is something that is important for ensuring that downtowns remain active pedestrian areas and active with individuals. It certainly helps them grow and creates energy around the economic development in downtowns. This modification that's recommended by the Planning Board would ensure that in the first 30 feet of a building off Water Street in the KBD1 district, and it's the geography of this is from the intersection with Commercial Street, which is essentially where the railroad trestle is, the overpass, south in the KBD1 zoning district. So that takes you up to Rhines Hill, right up to Rhines Hill. So the primary section of Water Street that would require that any of those frontages to a depth of 30 feet would end up having to be something other than residential. Residential could occupy the back half of those first floors and all of the upper floors. Lower floors below Water Street have floodplain issues, so you're not going to end up having residential there anyway. But this helps to preserve that economic vitality in the downtown while also ensuring that there's appropriate places for residential as well, even on that first floor.
And this relates to Water Street, but
Correct.
not Commercial Street?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any opposition at the planning board level?
There was not. No, this was also a unanimous recommendation on the planning board.
Councilors, questions? Councilor Sinkwitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, Matt, just thank you to the planning board, to Betsy, and to you for this work. This is clear, and it balances the needs of residential and commercial in a way that any developer can look at and understand what we're talking about. Although I do have to say, the Commercial Street intersection got me for a minute. I was like, they run parallel,
Yeah,
but
they do, but they do intersect right there.
They
at the
do
very top.
intersect right there. It took me a second, but this makes sense. It correlates with the development that is already on Water Street and the ends of it that are more residential. So thank you for that work, and I also look forward to moving that forward.
Great. And in addition to this, the moratorium that was put in place by the council was a 180-day moratorium. So in addition, if the council moves forward with this, it would also have a repeal of the moratorium that would come into at the same time as this being enacted.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes.
Mayor and council for both orders.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Councilor Judkins, every once in a while I look up at you, so make sure you get my attention if you ever want to weigh in, okay?
I will do that, Mr. Mayor. Thank
right.
you.
Yep. All right, we're moving on to C4, low barrier shelter request for proposals. Mr. Manager and
Thank you, Your Honor. I have our Director of Community Services, Earl Kingsbury, who was part of the drafting of this RFP that was sent out to all of you, I believe, the end of last week to take a review. It's included in your packets. Before we put this out on the street, we want to get any final comments that you have through this discussion here, and Earl's here to answer any questions you might have about the RFP.
Great, thank you. Earl, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, City Manager. Earl Kingsbury, Director of Community Services. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and I think at one point we were just waiting for the ordinance, the shelter ordinance, to be finalized and passed. And now that we're at that point, one of the recommendations of the task force, the homeless task force, was to develop a low barrier shelter, whether the city opened and operated a low barrier shelter, whether we partnered with another organization or agency to open and operate a shelter. However, we could make that work. So I worked on putting an RFP together. I sent it out last Thursday, I believe, so you could review it and have some time to look at it. When I put this together, I was looking at project goals, and the project goals were operate a safe low barrier shelter, reduce unsheltered homelessness, increase permanent housing placements, improve community health and safety, coordinate services among local agencies, reduce unnecessary emergency room utilization, reduce interactions with law enforcement, assist clients in obtaining income and benefits, and improve quality of life for shelter guests and surrounding neighborhoods. So the specifications of the shelter will address all of these project goals. I feel like I've done my due diligence and I did not leave anything out. I didn't want to leave any stones unturned. Maybe this ordinance or the specifications in this ordinance are cumbersome, but I wanted to make sure that I included all and everything when I was doing the research on best practices for supportive services, looking at the task force recommendations. I also wanted to make sure that I outlined the low barrier requirements on basically what should and shouldn't be required for admission. So who is eligible to come into the shelter and who's not? I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave any stones unturned. Cam did respond back when Cam reviewed this. Mostly all of his recommendations were formatting and some of the language changes, but he felt the ordinances, the RFP itself was good. One other thing, the other thing in this ordinance I didn't do, and I thought of hindsight, was I didn't ask for how many beds. I think if I included that in there, I would say 50 to 75. I did do a little research and found that Lewiston Auburn is building or proposing a low barrier shelter with 40 beds, and Waterville currently operates one with 65 beds. So those are the two numbers that I looked at. Again, I think if we built a shelter with 50 beds, it would fill. If we built one with 70 beds, it would fill. If we built one with 80 beds, it would fill. So the number I thought that I would put in there is 50 to 75, unless council feels that a different number is more appropriate. And then the other thing, one of the task force members responded, and I'm going to read his message so I make sure that I get it right. My major concern is that the combination of the challenging performance criteria in the RFP, the strict standards of the new ordinance, and a general public perception about developing a new shelter will combine to discourage many qualified agencies from bothering to apply. He went on to say, I know this is a terrible time to be proposing any new city expenses, but if $25,000 could be found in some reserve fund, whether it's TIF, drug settlement, United Way grant, Board of Trade grant, or anything unrelated to the general fund, to provide immediate help to the winning applicant to create a workable proposal for the City and Planning Board. A final application which will require engineering and planning work, meetings with neighbors, memorandum of understanding with local agencies, all of which would take staff time and money. You might find more agencies willing to swing at it. I would recommend that this is the best way to make sure that the RFP successfully attracts quality applicants. So that was one of the recommendations from the advisory group. And then the other thing that I didn't add in here, I didn't specify any city properties. I did put that as one of the enticements to apply for the RFP, but I didn't specify city properties because we haven't approved any of that yet. So with that, I believe you all had a chance to review the RFP. We'll go from there.
Council Lind?
Thank you. I don't know if Cam picked up on two words. They're all under facility and staffing requirements. Your lead sentence said the shelter should include, and then you've got your criteria. I'd like to strike the word should. Either put in will or shall.
I'll certainly review that. Cam had a lot of language changes.
Same
and
under
formatting,
staffing
so-
requirements, you have the word should. And I'd like to have the word will or shall,
Okay.
to be clear. I don't think we want to leave options as far as the facility and the training that's required.
I agree.
Thank you. Thanks, Earl.
Others? Yeah, with respect to the property, I think one of the things I'd raised in the past is, should we be clear at the RFP stage about what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do with respect to property, or do we just respond? We take a look at what we get for responses and then negotiate, if you will, or create a response, or make that decision at that point. And I guess because I got crickets when I brought that up, I guess we are punting on that.
Well, I think I put in here donation or lease of municipal property, so
Right.
one or the other. And I don't know which is stronger if we have an agency out there that wants to apply for any grants. I don't know if it's stronger if they own the property, or is it just as strong as if it is leased property? So I was unsure of that.
Yeah, one of the things I'd be concerned about is that if we get to the situation where we're donating or selling property, and I'm not sure that we will get to that because a response to an RFP could take many, many different forms and not necessarily involve any municipal property. But if we did, that, one expectation that might be important would be for them to know that if the shelter ever closes, that there'd be a reversion clause for the city, for example. So, maybe that can be deferred to when we consider what we get for proposals, and then
I think one thing that I could do is the other thing I forgot to mention is I will add some addendums to this RFP. One would be the ordinance, the shelter ordinance. I would add that to this RFP as just an addendum. I'd also add an addendum in there and possible sources of funding, grant funds, or different sources of funds that may be available that they could apply for. I could also, if we do decide that property is something that we do want to offer, then we could, I work with CAM and have an addendum to if property is to be offered, this will be the requirements, or this will be how we will transfer the property or lease the property. But I could work with CAM on that. But I agree, either a reverter clause or just a lease of the property. But I agree with that. I agree with that.
I wanted to ask you again about the comment that you got from the task force member. Was the gist of that it would be a good idea to provide some financial assistance to whomever or whatever group wants to participate in the RFP process?
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea was that if somebody wants to bid on something like this, there's a lot of money and legwork that has to be done. A lot of money would have to be expended just to get this to the planning board and get this to an approval state. And it may prohibit some people or hinder some people from applying for this, knowing that if I put all of this money forward, I may be denied all of this. And now I've expended all this money and we didn't move forward. So I think the idea was it would help get some qualified agencies or companies out there that would be more apt to put an RFP in.
Does anybody on the bench know whether opioid money could be used for that? Council Sinkwitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Exhibit E has a section that talks about creating conditions for the opening of new shelters. If I flip through, I will probably find it. And I believe that that is actually one of the preferred. There are levels of preferred expenses, and I believe that the opening of shelters is one of those higher levels of preferred expenses. I will find it and find the page number, but
I would agree that's in there as well.
yeah, it's in there, and I can highlight it and send it to the council. And I would be in favor of offering that because I think that not only do we want to make good on our efforts here, but also to move it along as quickly as possible. And so having that funding secured takes off one piece of the puzzle and can move that entity, whoever it is, faster into the development phase. So I'll let you know when I find that.
All right. Mr. Manager?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And my thought process with that, if we were going to add something, perhaps I would recommend not a specific number, but, language that said, a successful RFP, we could, look at other funding sources to include opioid. So it would entice people to know that there is that possibility, but not knowing how much we have, we could come back and discuss that as well, but I would want to go over that too. But I think it's a good idea to have some language in there that's kind of generalized and overall that would entice that.
But to assist with the RFP application in the first instance, or only with respect to the successful entity? I think that the suggestion was if there was some financial assistance to help with the preparation of the response to the RFP, not just with respect to this?
No.
No?
No.
No.
I didn't hear
No,
that
I
correctly.
think the successful bidder,
Right.
the financial assistance would be to help put the information together for the planning board. Planning board, any
Oh, okay.
permits, any
The
fees.
RFP, anybody can respond to, but we're afraid we won't get any applicants because there's no financial incentive, and we could just have some language in there that
Okay.
we could look at financial incentive,
The next
or
step.
that would be there.
Next
Yeah.
step.
The next
yes.
step, not the first step. Okay,
Right.
I misheard,
City,
sorry.
yeah, the city could assist, the successful bidder financially with the preparation of information for the planning board.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else on the council? Councilor Lilly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have an idea of how much roughly that would cost?
The
To help?
preparation, the documents?
Yep,
I- the-
absolutely.
I
Just a
don't.
ballpark.
Yeah, I don't, but the recommendations from the advisory group was $25,000.
Okay.
And I know that some of the stuff that I've just gone through, any engineering work that you have to get done, for some reason, there's always like a large $30,000 to $40,000 price tag with any stamped engineering designs. So it's quite costly.
All set, Councilor Lilly?
What's that? Thank
Okay,
you.
anyone else? All right, does the council think that this is in shape to go forward or needs further work? Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earl, thank you for all the work you've done on this. I know it's been quite the process. There was one small thing that I wanted to add, the data collection component. You have listed service utilization, and I think this would fall under it. One of the things that I would like to track is the number of open beds in particular, so that we can have an idea of how often it's being used, what the needs are in the community, and whether or not we're meeting those needs. Thank you.
Okay.
So how close are you to being able to issue this if the council's ready?
Well, I think the questions I have, and what, I mean, do you want me to specify the properties? Because we're really looking at two separate properties. Or do we want to leave just, properties in general without specifying the two properties that we're thinking of? Because we really haven't approved that yet. I could still just leave it in general. And then I'll put it in financial assistance preparing the work for the planning board. Those are the two things really that I'm looking to. Do you want me to add that in there, and how do you want me to add that?
So if we were to talk about the properties to make available specifically, that would take another meeting, I think, rather than just, well, I don't know, maybe you're ready to throw them both into the hat right now, but we've talked around it, but we've never really committed to it. Councilor Lind?
And off the cuff, I mean, if you just say generically property, because we don't know how long it's going to take for anyone to respond. Anything could change between now and months later. If we name a property, we may find ourselves in a tough spot if something changes. But if we're generic and just say property may be available, that at least the person looking at it knows it, gives us a little bit of an option later. I mean, it could be, we could get a response in a week, we could get a response in maybe a year. So I would rather leave it a little wide open, and a little more options available.
Others? Sounds like we're going to leave it open.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I'm thinking along both of the lines is, the city has acquired property at their disposal that they could have a consideration in the future. Same thing with the financial aspect of it as well, not narrowing it down to specifics, but that next round, so folks know when they're applying, there's that possibility.
All right. So in that case, we might be able to do something in early August, right? We're not going to meet next week, so we got 2 weeks before our next business meeting. Is that doable?
Absolutely. I mean, I could have this cleaned up and ready to go next week.
Okay. Oh,
So, and I'll send it back out again for final review, but I don't know if it needs to go to a council meeting just to approve the RFP. I mean, it's just a unique type of an RFP. But I could have something out to council next week, a final draft.
I would kind of like to have the council vote on it, only because it's a reflection of the next step in this process, and I think it would be good to have the council endorse it specifically. Any objection to doing that, putting it on the council agenda? No, okay. True for August 6th.
Great.
Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have we outlined what the process will be of scoring the RFPs and who will be responsible for that?
Yes, that's in the back, the scoring requirements.
I
Yeah,
did
that's
see the
that's listed in the back of it. The evaluation criteria, organizational experience, 20 points, financial capacity, 20 points, housing outcomes, 15 points, program design, 15 points, community partnership, 10 points, staffing plan, 10 points, and budget, 10 points.
And will that be your department scoring it and bringing us recommendations, or how? I think I've missed this part of the discussion of how it gets.
Well, yeah, honestly, I haven't thought that far. Typically, yes, it would just be my department, but if we want to form a committee or maybe the task advisory group, the advisory group could be the group that reviews them and scores them. They've been involved with this for the last 3 years, so that would be a very good, that'd be good for the advisory group. Yeah,
That makes sense to me. Thank you, Earl.
you're welcome.
Anyone else on this? Councilor Morse Polly?
Yes, I just want to speak to providing money for the planning of it. I want to make sure that we have that and we find that in here, because I don't recall that being in here. I think that it provides money for housing for individuals who are in recovery. I'm not sure whether or not the low barrier reaches that threshold. So I just want to make sure we don't really add that in until we're able to find that in the appendix.
Okay.
Will do.
Yep. Good suggestion. All right.
Great.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting this ready for us, and you and Frank as well. All right. C5, Opioid Settlement Task Force Report. Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am going to move down to the podium, and if it's the pleasure of the council, I know I have at least 2 task force members in here. I would like to invite them to sit at Kelly and Cam's seats so that if they'd like to chime in at any point, they have mics available, if that is it acceptable.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. I will be right there. Hello, Council. It's quite strange to speak to you from here. My name is Stephanie Sinkowitz. I'm a city councilor member. I'm also the chair of the Opioid Task Force. And bear with me a moment while I pull this up here so that I can go along as we go. All right. So back in November of 2024, the council created a policy for allocating opioid settlement funds for the city of Augusta. And part of that policy was to create the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force, which we have named OSFTF as an easier way of getting through that. And so since that time, we've gone through quite the process to get to tonight where we have recommendations before the council for funding. I'm going to be popping back and forth and running the slideshow. So tonight we will be going through the history, very, very briefly, the purpose and timeline of this group, an overview of our application and rubric, summary of applications, summary of recommendations, and then we will have time for council discussion. And I'd like to say that councilors can feel free to ask questions at any point, and then my task force members may also have things to interject at times. So the settlement history is that this is a settlement between government entities and the pharmaceutical supply chain participants. These funds are intended to abate harms from the opioid epidemic. They're received through a legal settlement, and Maine receives a share overall. It's broken down into 3 distinct funding streams: the state, the Maine Recovery Council, and direct share subdivisions. Augusta is a direct share subdivision by nature of our population density. We are one of 2 in Kennebec County between us and Waterville. These funds, Augusta's funds, are allocated at the discretion of the city council, but they're bound by the same MOU. All 3 funding streams are bound by the same memorandum of understanding that was signed in 2023 that has approved uses, and that's what we refer to as Exhibit E. Those approved uses are outlined there. So anytime you hear us reference Exhibit E, quite often, that is what we are talking about in that MOU. In November 2024, we had a series of meetings, maybe starting in October of 2024, where we created a policy at the council level. It allocates the funding, it outlines the ways that we will allocate the funding, and creates the opioid settlement task force. And the intent of this group is to review and score grant applications and make recommendations for final approval by the City Council, to receive and review grant applications for programs or initiatives focusing on these 4 pillars: preventing, reducing harm from, support recovery from, and, I left one out. Supporting treatment from opioid use disorder. That policy allocated $400,000 from the overall Augusta settlement for this group to recommend spending to the City Council. There are 7 current members. There's a 9-member task force. We have 2 vacancies at the time. I am the council chair of the task force. Earl Kingsbury, our director of community services, is a city staff member. Don Kearns, our community response specialist, is one of the members of the task force. We have Daniel Hartford with us tonight, a community member. Gabrielle Barabee-Pierce, a community member. We also have Catherine Holloway and Deidre Staunchfield, community members. Former members include Joshua Stover, Whitney Parrish-Perry, and Michael Pomerleau. Even those that either can't be here tonight or have served and are no longer serving, we really want to thank them for their service, because this was quite a time-intensive undertaking. This is what the OSFTF has done. So council started in 2024, November. From December 2024 to July 2025, we created an application for members to apply to this group. We solicited applications and created the group. In August of 2025, OSFTF began meeting, and from August to September, we established our group goals, reviewed research, and we read existing applications that other entities have used. In October of 2025 through January of 2026, we created our own grant application. From February to March, we created a scoring rubric for that application, and then in March of 2026, our grant application went live. It was open through May of 2026 and closed. We received 8 applications in total, and we began meeting in June to score our applications, and from June to July, we finalized our recommendations, which brought us here tonight to bring those recommendations forward to you. Our grant application, I don't dare try to, so there are links within this PowerPoint, but I don't dare try to click them at this point in time. I will not put CTV7 through that. Our application you have seen a few times, so I'm not going to go into depth about it. It has 3 funding tiers, so we had decided that applications would be scored only against similar levels of application. So tier 3 is applicants that were applying for up to $10,000 in grants. Tier 2 is up to $25,000 in grants, and Tier 1 is up to $50,000 in grants. Anyone who applied within that tier would be scored against others within that tier, but we had spent a lot of time discussing the nature of applications needing to be more in depth as they were requesting more funding. Our application also focused on 4 narratives, so we wanted to understand our applicants' understanding of the community landscape that they were functioning in or applying to function in, the project that they were bringing forward, their budget, and their plans to evaluate themselves going forward should they receive funding. Our scoring rubric included 3 gate checks. So basically, if an application did not pass these 3 gate checks, it could not move forward for funding. We said that the entity needed to function within the geographic area of Augusta. They needed to have a complete application, and they needed to show alignment with the council policy from November 2024 and Exhibit E. If they failed any one of those 3 gate checks, the application could not move forward. The aspects that we created of the rubric, we had 30 items that we scaled 1 to 5. So 1 would be basically failing in an item, 5 would be an exemplary item. Total possible score of 150, and those ranged in our different narratives. So some of our narratives had multiple items. I think the most we had was 40 points in one of our narratives, some as low as 25, that kind of reflected the amount of weight that the group was putting on that narrative. We did decide to allocate a 5-point bonus if the entity was going to address more than one of the 4 pillars the council had identified. So the prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery pillars. That would be in addition to any points that they had. So ostensibly, a grant application that was perfect could get 155 points. Throughout the scoring of the applications, we did find that we had a few recusals in our group. One of the things we knew going into this was that the council had prioritized expertise in the community, knowing that we would have some difficulty figuring out dual roles, different relationships, and one of the points of the group was to discuss any potential conflicts of interest and to recuse ourselves from voting if any came up. So all of these grants had 5 or 6 members actually scoring and voting on them, and it varies grant to grant. I'm going to move into our applications now. Does anyone have any questions, or do I have any comments from my group about where we've gotten to now?
Some more, Polly?
Yes, just a quick question. I know that when we originally set up the task force, we set up different roles for each individual on who we wanted on the task force. And so when you said that 3 roles, individuals from 3 different roles kind of fell off the task force, what were those 3 roles that we weren't able to fill during this process?
So one of those was early on and was replaced. So 2 of those are one role. That was someone with expertise in recovery housing. Josh Stover was with us for a month or 2. We had a vacancy for about a month. I think at that point we were only meeting monthly and hadn't moved to our biweekly meetings yet. And then Michael Pomerleau filled that vacancy and then was unable to continue his service maybe in May of this year. So that role was partially filled throughout the year. And then the other role was Whitney Parrish Perry, who I believe was filling the harm reduction, expertise in harm reduction role. I can double check on that. Actually, you know what?
And the portion, the
Go ahead,
part
Gabby.
that Whitney didn't participate in particular was the scoring, I
Yes.
believe, but she was there throughout the application and rubric development, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, it was the last component. So after the applications were complete, that was when Whitney was no longer able to join us for the scoring component. And yes, she was filling individual with experience in harm reduction role.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay. So summarizing our applications, I grouped them by tier. Tier 3 is our smallest grant tier, up to $10,000. We received 1 application. This application was from Zisk Recovery Partners, and they were applying for a curriculum expansion. So they wanted to purchase mental health curricula and supplies to expand their clinical offerings at their existing intensive outpatient program, IOP. They were were requesting $8,686.65. The majority of voting members, this was one that had 5 voting members, so 3 of the 5 voted against funding this grant. We had significant discussion around whether this type of expense should qualify for a grant. This discussion brought to light a weakness in our application in that we hadn't specifically outlined that we wanted our entities to provide us with statements of need or prove to us that this couldn't be funded from their operating budget. And if this application were to happen again, that's one of the items that we would recommend as an edit to go forward. So that is one of the applications that is not recommended for funding going forward. We had 2 Tier 2 applications. This is applications up to $25,000. Zisk again applied. Zisk has 3 total applications. This was to purchase outdoor gear and welcome bags for residents at existing Augusta recovery homes. They were applying for $14,700. The outdoor gear was for camping, kayaking, canoeing as part of their recovery home experience. The welcome bags included things like a Goodwill gift card and hygiene items for individuals appearing at their recovery homes that often appear with very few belongings. We had significant discussion, again, about whether this was an appropriate use of the opioid settlement funds, particularly the outdoor recreation gear. We had arguments for including increased engagement in treatment and an increased quality of life for individuals in recovery. Arguments against were that there were other possible avenues for procurement for these items, and it's not potentially the highest and best use of the opioid settlement funds. There was more consensus in the group around funding the welcome bags, as this is a known need in the recovery home community, and that this is not fully currently being filled by current operations. So that was a majority of members, 3 out of the 5 voted in favor of funding this grant, and an additional member would be in favor of partially funding this grant only for the welcome bags, which we have that amount if that was of interest to the council.
Yes, Councilor Judkins.
What is in a welcome bag?
Great question, Councilor Judkins. So they included items like a Goodwill gift card to purchase clothing, hygiene items, and am I forgetting anything, task force members?
Primarily help them with hygiene products, clothing, and stuff that would help them begin.
Yeah, my task force member Danielle agrees that it seemed to be around hygiene and clothing.
Okay, that makes sense. And I can understand about the outdoor gear. I know a lot of organizations have given carts and tents and sleeping bags and such, and I think they get used for a very brief period of time, and then they just happen to get left where they get left. And this stuff, if it lasted a whole season or something, would be wonderful. It just doesn't seem to happen that way. I would be in favor of the welcome bag portion.
My task force member wanted me to clarify that this would be for a recovery home, and so the home would own the camping gear, and the residents would utilize the camping gear, but that the home would own it for the life of the camping gear.
Do you feel it would still be the same way, that they would loan it out and then it would just get lost? Or do you think this is something that would have a long-term benefit?
You want to jump in, task force?
Well, I want to clarify, we're not just talking about camping gear, we were also, is it? Okay. Yeah. Not just talking about camping gear, also talking about kayaks, I believe, and some other outdoor recreational gear as well. So I won't editorialize beyond that.
Okay. Yeah, Danielle, go ahead.
But the intention of it was to increase engagement between the residents in pro-social activities that could enhance the treatment process, if not offer a form of recreational treatment. And so that's where the task force kind of clashed a little bit about the efficacy of that investment. Not that it wouldn't be effective to include recreational therapy, but using these funds for that particular thing was where we waffled.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, one of the things from the application that made me a member that voted in favor of this was that staff would be accompanying the residents. And so I think there is a degree of the recovery house taking accountability for the items and taking them on as their own to make sure that they were cared for.
I appreciate the extra context. Thank you.
Of course.
Councilor Singh, what's the breakdown between the two categories?
Let me pull that up for you. I want to say the welcome bags were significantly lower. I have in my head 8,000, but I do have the budget.
Councilor Lynn says he has it.
On the application, the
Mm-hmm.
camping gear was, it's tough to read, and it looks like 5,500. The water gear was 4,980, and the volleyball badminton was 870. Looks like the welcome bags were $3,350.
Yeah, so if you subtract that 3,350 from the overall 14, then you see the outdoor gear in general is about 11,000 of it, and the welcome bags were estimated to be 3,350. And while I have it up, it does say Goodwill gift cards, male toiletries for 30 bags, things like shampoo, soap, deodorant, razors, toothbrush, toothpaste, and for female toiletries, similar things, shampoo, conditioner, soap, feminine hygiene, deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste, razors, to provide a little more context that was asked for earlier.
Councilor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to talk a little bit about the camping gear.
Yeah.
You know, my first impression without doing the research, I just questioned, is this an appropriate use of the funds?
Mm-hmm.
And whether it is or not, I just think there may be a perception that this is kind of outside that scope. And I'm sure that discussion went on. But I also understand that, you know, I was a scoutmaster for a decade. Took kids out in the wilderness in Maine. I'm an outdoorsman, have been my whole life. This list is lacking a lot of things. You couldn't go camping with 40 people with this list. And as an example, or just one example, sleeping bags, you can't really pass that to one person to another. There are ways to do that, but this is not the way to do it. Transporting the gear alone would require a trailer. This list to me is not really valid or well thought through. Just an observation as an example, I look at the kayaks and canoes as 6 kayaks, 2 canoes, 16 paddles. You need 1 paddle for a kayak and 2 paddles for a canoe, so I'm not quite sure how that math worked out. But I look at the camping gear, it's just really lacking. There's no cooking gear, there's no storage of food, there's no transportation, the safety of it all. The welcome bags make perfect sense, and I'm sure that was a discussion that went on in the council, but I would not be in favor of the camping gear. I just really wouldn't. Good thought, but not thought through carefully. And we're stewards of this money. It's public money, and it's not. I would not approve this request. So, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Of course.
And Councilor Morris-Polly?
Yes. So I was looking at the welcome packets for residents at existing Augusta recovery homes. And when I looked at this organization, they're based out of Portland, and they have homes in Farmingdale, Winthrop, Portland area. How many homes, recovery homes existing in Augusta is this money going towards?
All of our applicants agreed to ongoing evaluation criteria that would include separating out their costs to show that these funds would be spent particularly on their Augusta residences. So that was a component of the grant eligibility requirements, was that these monies would be spent by Augusta entities. And I will say my interpretation or my experience of ZISC's applications was that they were very professionally done and understood that closely and had accounting already in place to be able to provide us that information.
So do we know how many residents they have at the Augusta Recovery Homes? How many homes do they have in Augusta?
I believe they have two. Their application included that information, and I can pull that up. Augusta IOP and Recovery Homes. So they have two homes here in Augusta and an IOP. And the other question was the number of people it would serve. So their estimate is that it would serve 70 individuals. And in there, get to the correct page here. This is the camping gear. Here's the welcome bags. By July 31st, 2027, staff will have distributed a minimum of 60 welcome bags, 30 male and 30 female, and 40 Goodwill gift cards to adults entering our Augusta Recovery Program. Tracked in a distribution log that records the date, client identifier, items received, and reviewed quarterly by leadership. They would also be required to submit quarterly reports to either the OSFTF if that continues to function as an entity, or to the council.
Okay. I just know with my experience in recovery homes, clothing donations is pretty extensive. We get a lot of clothes. And then in regards to hygiene items, there are multiple other areas where hygiene items are given out in Augusta. Bridging the Gap comes to mind. They're open regularly. So I'm not sure that this would be the best use of the funds for treatment. So that's where I'm coming in. Certainly the camping gear, I don't think that fits any of the exhibits that we've reviewed, or I've reviewed anyway. So
that was a significant portion of the discussion, was whether the entities that exist, Bridging the Gap came up, it's top of mind for people, whether they completely fill the need for the individuals. And there was a variety of opinions on the task force of whether that was a need that was being completely filled in the community, or if this would fill another need. So it's definitely a point in our discussion. Anything else before we move on to UCLC? Okay. Our second Tier 2 application was from the United Community Living Center. They submitted two separate applications. This application was for the $25,000. It's an expansion of their outreach program to connect with currently unhoused residents of Augusta. This expands the capacity of their already functioning program from 2 to 3 days a week. And this was a unanimous recommendation from the OSFTF. We had significant experience knowing that this outreach program has been working well in our community. The application was very thorough, and it hit, I think, possibly 3 out of the 4 pillars that council is looking for. Maybe with a stretch, could even be described as prevention. And this funding, the budget was also broken down quite well, showing the way that the funding would be supplied to the individuals who are doing the work, the supplies that they need to purchase, and that there are other sources of funding for sustainability over time.
Councilor Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You might have hit on it there, but my concern is that with they hire some individuals and the ongoing being able to keep them on staff, but I'm looking at the back here, and it might show that that's a possibility with other funding.
Yes. So the outreach worker, if I'm remembering right, already works for this organization. So it's extending their work for another day. So it's not onboarding a new outreach worker, if I'm remembering right. We also have UCLC here in the audience if they want to provide any clarity. And so the majority of what would be funded here, actually, I think I misspoke. I don't think this funds the outreach worker at all. I apologize. I'm mixing this up. The funding is solely for the supplies. I apologize for that misstatement. This is for
hygiene and wound care, first aid, transportation, gas cards, van upkeep and maintenance of the van that they already own for outreach events or outreach services.
Is this tier 2?
Tier 2 up to $25,000. So these are the two tier 2 applicants that we received.
That I'm seeing on the back, it says outreach worker salary 2 hours per day, 3 days per week at $20 per hour.
Yes, so if you look at our budget submission template, we asked them to identify what the proposed funding for the opioid settlement that the Augusta opioid settlement funds, then funding from other sources, and then total funding. And they list the outreach worker and the taxes and fringe, but those amounts come from funding from other sources.
And I see that now. I see that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We have looked at this for many hours. I do not expect the same level from someone who is receiving it this week. So I welcome all the questions.
Councilor Morris Polly.
Yes, I think you kind of answered that question in regards to it not funding the outreach worker, because I do believe this organization is providing a case management service to individuals who are unhoused, so that would be funding the outreach worker in a sense. Okay. The other thing too is, I guess I haven't got real into detail here, but are supplies a covered underneath Appendix E?
Yes.
Supplies standalone?
Yes. Let me, without breaking my laptop. So one portion of Exhibit E is that each section starts with a header that particularly, let me find one that pertains to UCLC.
I'm just looking for the specific that would pertain to supplies without the
certainly
treatment
So
provider utilizing the supplies.
Let me find the ones that I have outlined for them. So if you look at E12, that section is prevent overdose deaths and other harm reduction. The header for that section says support efforts to prevent or reduce overdose deaths or other opioid related harms through evidence-based or evidence-informed programs or strategies that may include but are not limited to the following. So at any point, we should be following these instructions, but we are not limited to the examples here, included but not limited to. That first one, UCLC qualifies for number 1, increased availability and distribution of naloxone and other drugs that treat overdoses for first responders, overdose patients, individuals with OUD, which is opioid use disorder, their friends and family members. It goes on. Community navigators and outreach workers is what qualifies here. So they are distributing naloxone in that way. And then I believe, again, number 10 is expanding access to testing and treatment for infectious diseases, which I believe is also listed here. Harm reduction supplies. Maybe that was a conversation we had. Betty, I may be... etc. And then mobile units that offer or provide referrals to harm reduction services, treatment, recovery supports, healthcare, and other appropriate services to persons that use opioids or persons with OUD and any co-occurring SUD or mental health conditions.
Okay, I see the naloxone in there. I'm just not seeing the supplies that are specifically being purchased with them. I don't know if that matters or it doesn't matter. It's just, this has the specific language on what is covered, and some of that crosses over and some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
So that's just my concern. Other than that, I think it's a great idea. I think it'll, I just want to make sure that the language is correct.
Yeah, I would offer that supporting mobile units that offer harm reduction services is where that particular portion is probably the strongest. But I would also say that the headers here do give us some latitude that we are supposed to fund things that are in this vein but are not necessarily limited to. Any other questions on UCLC?
Yes, Counselor Lynn?
Not on UCLC.
Okay.
Just an observation on the overall packet. So this is nice to see a unanimous vote, by the way. That was
Yes, we had
good.
many.
Yep. It said all voting members, 5. And then later I noticed another application, all voting members, there was 6.
Yes. That,
So who are the voting members and why was most of them 5, but one item had 6?
there's a few here that you'll see had, I think most actually had 5, the way it worked out. We had some members that, like one of our members was on a board for one of the entities that applied, and so she recused herself from voting on that. We had members that either were on boards or had personal relationships with people that worked in these entities, and they recused themselves. I have a whole spreadsheet of who's recused
No,
from
it's
what.
okay. It just didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't consistent. So, okay.
So there were, by the end of scoring, there were a total of 7 members, but Director Kingsbury was recused from all scoring given his role in the city as a director. So we had up to 6 scoring members. We had at least 5 on any.
So I assume as a chair, you don't vote unless there's a tie, or are you a voting member?
No, I was a voting member. We didn't,
Okay.
yeah, we didn't go about it that way.
6, all right. Thank you. Yeah, I just
Yeah, of course.
noticed it, yep.
Counselor Austin?
Councilor Judkins.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Okay, Counselor Judkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know UCLC had been running a program by which they had volunteer doctors that were treating people right at their facility on Spruce Street. And I'm wondering, is that part of their program still in existence? And if so, would some of these supplies be first aid supplies and such for that kind of ongoing treatment?
That's a great question. I am happy to bring up UCLC if that's the pleasure of the council and the pleasure of UCLC. My understanding is that these first aid supplies would be for the outreach program, and that, again, they would be separated into the different costs, like with ZISC and having their different recovery homes throughout the state, that these costs would be kept separate in separate accounts and provided to us ongoing in those quarterly reports that we require for this grant application. I'm getting nods from UCLC behind me.
Okay, Counselor Judkins?
Yes, thank you.
That is still an active part of what they do, is offering that medical support that you were speaking of. And I think the aim for this proposal was to enhance rapport building that could bring individuals who are underserved into that fold and increase their chances of getting into treatment in other ways.
All right. Anyone else? All right. You may resume.
Okay. That is it for our Tier 2 applications. So moving on to our Tier 1 applications, we had 4 total. And, sorry, there, lost my place. These were applications up to $50,000. Our first application for discussion came from Access Direct, which was an expansion of an existing call center service that connects individuals to treatment. The program's located in Biddeford, receives calls statewide. They were requesting the full $50,000. The OSFTF group, all voting members voted against this funding due to a failure at the gate check. We did not feel that this application made a strong enough case that it would be utilizing the funds in the city of Augusta for the city of Augusta. There was widespread support of this initiative and this program, but just that this is not the right stream of funding for this project. Does anyone on council have a question or comment about that? Okay. Our third and final application from ZISC was for the purchase of a van to transport clients enrolled in their Augusta-based outpatient clinic and recovery homes to IOP groups, medication-assisted treatment appointments, community recovery activities, etc. Again, it was the full $50,000 requested. The majority of voting members, again, 3 out of 5, voted in favor of funding this grant. We had significant discussion around the use of the settlement funds for purchases by a single entity for their own use instead of public use. Those in favor of this grant cited a significant need for transportation in Augusta, particularly for this community of people in active use or recovery, and that transportation can be additionally difficult for people in this community. ZISC's application outlined the ways in which this would increase access to treatment, which was the pillar that they were applying under.
Councilor Morris Polly.
Thank you. I was just sitting here thinking, these opioid funds, we're going to continue to have them. We're going to continue to have applications. And we also know that as a city, we have a lot of recovery homes and a lot of different organizations. And so if we are looking at approving things like hygiene bags and vans, shouldn't every recovery home then be able to submit an application for that same thing? And what would be, are we buying vans for every recovery home that does that? I mean, I think that is my concern. My other concern too is I think that, recovery homes are usually coupled with an organization that provides treatment. And so therefore, assisting individuals to get to treatment is of their best interest, both for the functioning of the home and for the functioning of their organization. So when I look at something like this, that's where my mind kind of goes to. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So part of your concern is precedent that would set?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Part of your concern is the precedent it might set?
Absolutely, the precedents that it would set. Yeah.
Councilor Lind?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Sinkowitz, so that's a bare majority. Some would
Yes.
call it a contested vote.
Mm-hmm.
Without going through all of the applications, which is not my job, I'm wondering if any of the people here may have that voted against it could explain the issue. Because I'm very protective of public funds, and when I see this, the unanimous votes I'm going to support, I'm not going to question, but when I see a split vote like that, I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I should have said from the start that the unanimous votes moved fairly quickly, and the ones that had some things to work out took some time, and some of the decisions made, I was actually the deciding vote, and the deciding vote was in order to bring it to the council, so that if we were not recommending, it was assumed the council would probably not move forward with them, but that these contested votes, we wanted as a group to provide council with the information and then have council be able to make the decision based off that. So thank you for reminding me of that, Councilor Lind. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if anybody wants to speak to some of the things that were pros and cons of this application in the room.
I think one of the kind of fundamental questions that arose throughout this process that wasn't super clear to the task force from the city's policy was whether nonprofit status was important in funding projects, and also I think we spent a fair amount of time at the beginning talking about capital costs as well. So I don't want to speak to the reasoning behind anybody's particular vote, but I will just say that that was one thing that we looked to the council policy for that we were unable to kind of locate within the policy which way we should be going. And then, just kind of fundamental differences of opinion about the appropriate uses of grant funds for these sorts of capital costs.
Location too was a concern that was discussed because of the multiple locations in which that entity is serving people. And I was curious why rural stats were given to us to justify transportation within a town area that has accessibility to other forms of transportation, as well as the locale of the treatment facility is in walking distance of most people in this area. So that was my question as far as voting against it, is that how can we show that it's being used within Augusta, and why does Augusta need it if there are other forms of transportation to use?
Thank you.
Councilor Morris Polly?
Yes, I just want to speak to council policy. I think that that is a really good point because I know that I wasn't on the council when the policy came up, and I know that we're going through a process here, and that it may be beneficial after this round that we look at council policy and we look at, what came up, what are the questions, and whether we want to make that clearer for the next round. So thank you very much for that feedback.
I will note that we have a working list of things ready to bring to council, things that went well and things that hindsight's 2020 about.
It's a good process.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Councilor Lilly has a question?
Yes, and maybe it was covered, and I apologize if I missed it. I just want to confirm, is the primary contact person for the ZISC applications, was that the former member that was on the council? Or
Yes.
not on the council, but on the committee?
Yeah, I would like to, and I don't think Josh is here to speak for himself tonight. When we first began, we met, I think, 2 or 3 times before Josh got off. And so we did not consider that to be a conflict of interest for him because we were nowhere near starting the application. But yes, that is the same individual.
Okay.
So he may have been more aware of the grant
We're
application.
talking 1 or 2 or very early on in the process before any rubrics or anything like that? Okay.
Exactly.
If I may.
Yeah.
We were deep into discussions of conflicts of interest for the meetings that he was
Absolutely.
participating in. And so I don't even think that we touched upon any sort of substantive portions of the application until after his withdrawal. So, but we did spend a lot of time looking at our obligations related to real and perceived conflicts.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. Sounds like you guys did your due diligence and the transparency. I just wanted to see if I understood that, so thank you.
No, good question.
Right.
Thank you. We have 2 more. Let me get all my things up where they need to be. 2 more applications to discuss. So our final 2 applications were also Tier 1 applications, both for the full $50,000. One for Housing for Good Company, HFGC. This was in support of the establishment of a detox center in Augusta, which we've heard through the planning board process. It would serve individuals needing medical detoxification, particularly from opioids and alcohol or sedatives. A majority of voting members, slightly more than our bare majority, 4 out of 5, voted in support of funding this grant. We did have a bit of discussion around this. At first, we needed more clarity around their budget, and they did come back and give us that. And overall, there was strong support in the voting members for the need for a detox center in Augusta, as currently Maine General is serving as, I think, the only one, and they are really more geared toward detox from alcohol.
Councilor Morris Polly?
Yeah. Housing for Good Company. Is that the correct name?
Is that, did I get for God's children? Sorry.
It is Housing for God's Children. I didn't know whether they changed their name or not.
I apologize.
Okay.
What a
well, Good Company,
mistake.
God's Children, both good names, but okay, I wanted to clarify that. And then, so when I was looking at the organization is based in Augusta. I know that they went through the process of planning board for the detox. I know that the cost of getting a detox off the ground is pretty expensive. So I'm assuming when you say you asked for more financial information, that it really was able to show that there's other finances to support this detox, because I know 50,000 is probably not anywhere near going to touch the process of the size of the building, what needs to occur to the building, the staffing levels that it needs. So were they able to support that this 50,000 would, in conjunction with the other finances they have, be able to put a detox off the ground in that location?
Yeah, you're bringing up great questions that were some of our immediate responses of, we don't want to send good money into something that won't get off the ground. And I apologize, my laptop's not hooked up to the internet. I was going to pull up the email that they sent. But they did outline, off the top of my head, I want to say it was somewhere around like 2.7 million overall. I may be misremembering that, and I think we do have some representatives from the company in the room. And they outlined specifically, oh, I wish I had that email, the ways in which this funding would be used, which I believe was mostly around partial salaries. Does anybody remember that off the top of my, yeah? Yeah.
Anyone else? Councilor Lynn?
Just, so the funds can be used beyond, detoxing from opioid? Outside of the
Yes.
scope of that?
Yeah, so
I just find that interesting. I'm not, it's a good thing. And I know that it was related to opioid, but they're talking beyond that. So.
in particular, I want to find one of the expansions that Exhibit E expressly supports is broadening the scope of recovery services to include co-occurring substance use disorder or mental health conditions. And then number...
Alcohol, I mean.
Yeah, please, Danielle.
What people are facing today out in active use is a plethora of substances that they can come across unknowingly. So really, we're at a point where people are going to need detox from several different things, and something that would be in their system along with opiates is also going to create issues medically, maybe not life-threatening, but enough to produce discomfort or even pulling back from the process. And so it really is kind of going to go hand in hand that polysubstance use is going to be something we have to start facing as treatment providers, and it's just going to be part of the opioid detox.
Yeah, I know how serious it is to detox from alcohol. I mean, you can die from detoxing from alcohol. So.
And while you might not have that lethal of a risk in other areas, it's still something that's becoming quite a barrier for our members out there in that community as they try to.
I'm not opposed to it. It just surprised me a little bit that there was an opioid settlement that covered that also. So that's a very positive thing. It caught my eye, that's all.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilor Lind. On page 5 of Exhibit E, number 7 is support evidence-based withdrawal management services for people with OUD and any co-occurring mental health conditions. So that's the specific one that we were supporting HFGC under. And the way that I think about this is similar to the way that we think about the overnight warming center, that you're going to capture people with opioid use disorder, and there may be a few people that are captured that are not actively using opioids, but that the majority of the funding is going for people who have been affected by opioid use. Thank you.
Quick question. I noticed that it was near unanimity, 4 out of 5. Can you recall what the reservation was by that 5th member who didn't support it?
Yeah, I think our 5th member at the beginning had said, really like this idea and it's desperately needed in the city, but was concerned about the budget. And then when this entity was able to get us the budget back, that member was not in the room, and so was joining us by phone call. And the way that I heard them on the phone was that they didn't feel comfortable voting for it without having seen the budget information. If that member would like to tell me I'm way off base, I'm happy to hear that, but that's what I remember from the phone call in the room.
Councilor Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there something in here that if this goes through, and if for some reason the facility doesn't become operational, do they have to give the money back, or?
We do have a clawback clause. Corporation Counsel is quite conservative in our capabilities of doing so, but that is a possibility.
Because that, just to be completely frank, that's what would be my major concern with a project of this magnitude. I think it's probably a good project, but that 50,000 is a lot. If not a lot for the entire project, but it is still a lot of money, and it's just when we have other things that we could put that towards, or other applications that come through, that would just be a reservation that I would have. So
certainly.
Yeah.
Council Morris Polly?
Just to follow up on that, because I was thinking the same thing, is that can we release the funds once it is opened where it is specifically for salaries? So the operation needs to be functioning and that the individuals would need to be hired. And there's quite a process to the construction, the licensing, getting everything in place. Is there a way to do that where we can approve it, but the funds are released once it is functioning?
I'm pulling up their application to see what their outcomes are. What they had proposed was that they would be providing services to 500 to 650 individuals during the project period, August 1st, 2026 through July 31st, 2027. If it's the pleasure of the council, I would invite any of the members of HFGC to speak to the stage of the proposal. But also, that's something that we could ask for information and get back to us if that's.
Can you say those numbers again? How many individuals are going to be served within a year time frame?
500 to 650.
And are these Augusta residents?
That was not specific Augusta. That's their overall, the $2.7 million would be serving the 500 to 650 for the year.
Yeah, so while that initially sounds risky and not something that would be serving the Augusta community, I think the caveat of discussion we haven't touched on is how the continuum of care would continue into working with recovery residences in the Augusta area. I know that we had asked questions about their plans to collaborate with other entities and give person-centered care where people could choose where they go. And that was something that was said would be a thing that could happen or would happen with these individuals, which would then enhance the ability of these recovery homes in Augusta to absorb the individuals after detox and then work them into the community to hopefully root in the Augusta community as viable members of the Augusta area.
And if I can piggyback on that, the other thing to keep in mind is that this is a new and different service that will allow members from our community to stay in their community for these detox services that they are otherwise having to go further out of town. So it's not just it's folks who are already living here who are ready to get into recovery who need to do a safe detox as well.
Anyone else?
He raised his hand earlier.
Councilor Judkins, did you want to weigh in?
Did they provide any information as to where they anticipate this facility to be located? What community will it actually be in?
I believe, I'm double checking now. My recollection is that it's the 1 Anthony Ave project. Gabby, you have it that it is?
It is, yeah. It's the one in Augusta.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not built yet or anything, but they're looking for this money to cover a time period beginning August of this year?
Do you want to speak?
I'm gonna need a mic.
For people listening at home, we might.
So the project is about 2 months away from being done, the construction. We've already secured the building. We've got the funding for construction. Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. That helps.
Councilor Morris Polly?
Just have a question while Joe's up here. Do you need to be JACO approved or accredited for this detox?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And the 500 to 600 number, that is for Augusta residents. For potential clients for a year.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lynn?
I think you answered my question. So the 600 is a course of a year, over the course of a year?
What was that?
The 600 people is over the course of a year?
Yep.
Okay. It just help me, educate me a little bit. That just seems like a lot.
So at max capacity, we could potentially house, I think it's 5,000 people for the year. 14-bed capacity for 365 days.
So these are not necessarily unique individuals.
I think what the part that Joe is not, he's leaving out is the detox is short term, right? So that one bed would be occupied X amount of days for that one. It's not an individual 600 people, right? It's 600 abilities, right? So it's like a unique number is what that aggregates to. Do you know what I mean? So there's 14 beds, so they're changing. Do you get what I mean?
The rotation.
Rotation.
The
There we go.
rotation of patients that are in because detox is a particular amount of time. So you're hearing a number that someone might be staying there long-term. These are rotating patients that only need short-term care.
Councilor Mishu?
I'm getting quite an education, but young man, I don't know who you are or what you do. You just came up and talked and said it's going to be ready. So if you wouldn't mind telling us who you are and what you do.
My name is Joe Babbage, and I'm the Vice President of HFGC Recovery Network. We currently operate several recovery homes in Augusta and Section 65 program, intensive outpatient.
Thank you very much.
And do you know Mr. Reynolds?
I do.
Okay. All right. Resume? Yep.
I think I shut my laptop off on myself. Our final application, unless. That's right. We have two more. There's one more slide after this. Our two final. It's a good thing you're here, Danielle.
Tumbler's full.
Is there anything else on this one before I move on?
All set on,
So the
Jeff, you'd say-
teen center application is again for the 50,000. This is the establishment of a new position, teen community coordinator, to serve as a liaison between teens and their families affected by opioid use or at risk of engaging in opioid use and the community supports that are already existing. This was for the full 50,000. All voting members voted in support of this funding. There was a lot of strong support for this application in the committee. There was concern at the beginning for funding a position, given that these are one-time funds. And the Teen Center provided us with a very, in detail grant funding budget for the year, their operating budget. And their intention is to use this as startup funding and that they are actively pursuing other grants for sustainability. This was the only application to focus on youth prevention, which was another reason that the committee was strongly in favor of it. And I did reach out to the Teen Center because in the midst of this grant application process, Chris Maloney left the Teen Center and they are in the process of kind of establishing their new leadership. But Lizzie at the Teen Center did tell me that they are still pursuing this grant and this position.
Questions, comments? Councilor Polly?
I just want to say that I think this is wonderful to see teen prevention and a grant for that. I think it's highly needed. I know that both Kennebec and Somerset County opioid settlement dollars have not really been spent very much on prevention. And so the fact that this is focusing on prevention, A, is great. And then the fact that it is teens is perfect. So I'm glad that this has unanimously been voted on by your team. And I'm happy to support this one. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. And our final application, actual final application this time. UCLC's second application is for the Tier 1 funding, the $50,000. This is a physical expansion of their current building to expand their services. This would add a commercial kitchen, 2 additional bathrooms, 2 showers that they do not have currently, and a laundry room, which I also believe they do not have currently. All voting members voted in favor of this grant. There was significant support from the full task force. This expands services that are already well established in our community. It aligns strongly with Exhibit E and council policy, particularly in the needs for a capital investment, and does not include salaries and things like that that would need ongoing funding.
Councilor Mishu?
That 50,000, would that cover the costs of a commercial kitchen and all that, or is that helping to cover the costs of those?
Helping to cover the cost, let me pull up their full, I believe they provided us with their full budget. Here it is. They had a total budget of $255,000 and $255,050. There was outside funding of $205,050. They were asking for our $50,000 to fund $10,000 for their community room expansion, $20,000 for their laundry, ADA accessible bathrooms and showers, and $20,000 toward their commercial kitchen. None of those cover the full cost of any of those particular renovations or expansions, but they do have their other estimates listed.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I see no other questions. Oh, I do. Councilor Jenkins.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I think these things that they're explaining and doing was very much part of their original plan when they purchased that building over on Spruce Street. There is space there to accommodate these things, and again, like I said, the original plan was to have these things in place. This will get them up to, I wouldn't say full operation, but a lot closer to being able to provide all of the services that they had envisioned to do for the unhoused population. They're good folk. They're working hard at this. They've proven themselves. They own the building. I know these particular items, you know, a showering spot, laundry for folks, these are desperately needed by that community. I know that they would be good stewards of it. I feel that they will spend this money well, and I can support this for this organization wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at the additional funding that you did require, is this, and maybe somebody from the UCLC could answer this, is this something that we're going to see if the money is given, provided? Is this going to, you're going to be able to do this within the year, or?
Please identify yourself.
Yes, I am Betty St. Hilaire. I'm the Executive Director of the United Community Living Center. The construction is already underway. The demo's done, the walls are framed, plumbers and electricians are in, sheetrocks. We have already raised a significant portion of the money, and we are undergoing just beginning a capital campaign to raise the remainder of the money and money for our additional renovations that are not included here. So we are very confident that, yes, we will have this done within the year.
So you're at a point, if this money gets directed, you could use this right off the bat towards?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lind.
Betty, she left quick. You were out of here. It's all good. Get out of here. I just want to compliment you. This is great. You know, that you did doing the capital campaign, you're doing half of it, and this money's going to kind of just push it over the edge. It's nice to see a kitchen. I know that the need for food is tremendous. I mean,
Our current facility is a former doctor's office, and we have little tiny hand sinks.
oh, I
and,
remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, and no kitchen, so we're doing with what we have. We take dishes home to wash them and prepare, food is prepared off-site and brought in. So it would be nice to be able to serve healthier, heartier meals to our guests and be able to prepare
Yeah, the
them
ad
all
hoc
on-site.
collaboration, I think, between the warming center and UCLC, there's kind of a pass off, and they
Absolutely.
need a meal when they
Yep.
leave there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Councilor Morris Polly.
Yes, I just want to make a quick comment. Hi, Betty. I just want to say thank you very much for this. I support this. I think that you do this so quietly and so consistently, and that's really how I see true helpers, is that you're plugging along and you're doing it as you can at your pace, and you're doing well with it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. It's always been our goal to start with what we have, do with what we have, and grow as we're able what I see a lot is people try to get too big too fast and
Correct.
they fail, and failure is not an option.
Slow and consistent wins the race. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could also add to that, all of our meetings have been public. They've been recorded, and I think Betty showed up to 75% of them. Her dedication to her program and knew that she wanted to apply to this grant process, educated herself deeply along the way, spent a lot of hours with us before she submitted her applications. I think that that's another one of those quiet ways of doing the work. So I wanted to highlight that. Anything else, or we can circle back to any of the applications. One thing I also might float is if council wants further discussion of a subset of applications, we don't have, we're setting this procedure ourselves at this point in time. There are 2 that were not voted out of committee, 2 that were that 3 out of 5. Am I getting that right? I think 1 that had the 4 out of 5 and 3 that were unanimous, or were there 4 unanimous? No.
I don't know, because you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're mapping out.
Yeah, so I can go back and look at those, but if it's the council's pleasure, we can make decisions tonight, or we can also make decisions piecemeal along the way. I wanted to open that up for us to decide.
Council Lynn?
If I remember right, these all require council approval.
Yes.
So the committee's making a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't stop at the committee. It's got to stop here
Right.
formally. So what I don't want to speak for the whole council, but I would prefer to see each grant as a separate order that we could take and vote on each one.
Absolutely.
That's how I think we have to proceed,
Mhm.
whether they were voted against or not. So
Yeah.
that's what I see it as happening.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to
And I
me.
would be shocked if the council voted for an application that the committee was unanimous against, but nonetheless, the formality is we are the approval body, and we would work off the recommendation, so.
What about grouping the 3 that were unanimously recommended? You still want to do those individually, or?
Just procedurally, I think doing it individually is cleaner, and I think that.
Your Honor, I believe you should do them each individually.
Yeah. All right.
And we didn't talk.
Sure. Looking back through, we have 4 that were unanimous. So we have the UCLC Tier 2. We have I apologize, unanimous in dissent. So there are 3. You're correct, Mr. Mayor. 3 that were unanimous approvals. UCLC Tier 2, UCLC Tier 1, and the Teen Center Tier 1. The HFGC was 4 out of 5 voting members. Then we have the 2 ZISCs that were 3 out of 5 voting members. And then we have the 2 that did not make it out of committee, and 1 was unanimous, 1 was 3 out of 5 not making it out. So my question, I think, for the council, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, is whether we need more time with any of the ones that were not unanimous, more council discussion or more information.
Council Morris Pauly and then Council Lilly.
I just have one that I go back to HFGC in regards to, I would approve it, but I'd like the funds to be released once the project is completed and they are licensed for the staff that the funds are being paid out to. So if that was written into the context of this, then so that would be the only one that I think that I would be like, do I say yes? Do I say no? But if that language was in there so that we know that those funds are going to be used in that way versus having to look at clawbacks and figuring out that process.
Yeah, I'm not looking into well, I will if we have to, but I'm not enthused about looking into clawbacks.
Council Lilly.
The only one that I think that I would need broken out is I believe it was one of the Zisk options with the camping gear and the bags. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I don't know if I would not be able to support it with the camping gear part, if we could have that somehow split.
You could do that by amendment
With
of
amendment,
that
okay.
specific order.
Yeah.
And try to amend it, so these would all be posited as orders to approve, each one of them, even the ones that weren't recommended. The vote, they may not get any votes in support, but, posit them and to approve in each one, and then take a council vote on each one. That's what I would suspect. And we could, if there's a particular condition that's not objectionable to the group to add to one, the HFGC or whatever,
Zisk.
we could do that. And then have 8 different orders. Yeah, Councilor Lynn?
So the other thing that I like about having it as an individual order is it gives the applicant a chance, or anyone else, for a public comment period.
That makes sense.
So let's say the committee votes totally against one. It gives them at least one more chance
Right.
in the public process to stand at the podium and make their case. So it kind of ensures that process.
So hopefully every applicant is listening to our meeting and they can come advocate for their project.
With that discussion, are we ready to put it on a business agenda for 2 weeks from tonight, August 6th?
I can't tell you how enthused the task force is to get to that stage. I should have had this up. This outlined it for us. I thought this through earlier this week and then forgot I had it. This is the outline of our outcomes, which we just discussed. We don't need to discuss again. If we're at this stage, I would just like to praise my task force, but if we have more council discussion, I can wait.
I'm sorry, say that again?
If we're at this stage, I would just like to praise my task force,
Oh, yes.
but if we need more council discussion, it can wait a moment.
I think council's ready to act on these recommendations, so.
Fantastic. Our task force met 22 times and 1 workshop since August of last year through now. We created an application that we hope is reusable should the council ever want to do something like this in the future. And we thoroughly vetted applications to support abatement efforts in Augusta. The 3 applications that we unanimously recommended to council total $125,000 worth of funding. There are 3 that have varying levels of support that total $114,700 and 2 not recommended. So if we do all of the funding, that would be, if all of them went through, it would be $239,700, which is 60% of the allocated funding. And I can't emphasize enough how diligently the members of this task force approached this work. All of our meetings, we started meeting once a month for an hour. Then we said, that's not enough. We need to meet for 2 hours at a time. We weren't getting through anything in an hour. Then we weren't meeting enough, so let's meet 2 times a month. We met for 38 hours throughout this process. Each task force member put in extra hours of work, scoring, reading all the applications, answering emails back and forth about scores, and about the themes of the application when we were building it. And I just need to say thank you to these members of our community who volunteered all of this time and could have just said, green light it all, right? Here we go. Or could have just taken the applications that existed and said, throw it out there and see what happens. But that is not what these members did. They said, we care deeply about the people who are affected by this, about this funding, and we want a good product at the end of it. And we engaged in I don't want to say contentious. I want to say very highly engaged discussions where there were often opposing views held with respect. And I think that can be a difficult thing to do, especially in a topic that can be so personal. And I just can't thank my members enough. I also need to thank Director of Communications Haley Govin for all of her work getting our things onto the website so that people could apply. Corey in IT, I did not know Corey very well at the beginning of this process, and I know him very well now. So as the Director of IT, he gave me so much knowledge about how to run just Conference Room A, but also getting this into a Microsoft form on the website was its own thing, and Corey was very generous with his time and taught me a lot along the way. And then Loretta makes everything work in this city. So Loretta Lath booking us and making sure the recording was set up, none of it could have happened without them as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Add my thanks, the council's thanks for the group's work. We know from your periodic updates to the council and the public that all the time and work that you put into it, and I think this was really the type of result I think that we were hoping for and looking for. So we appreciate all the work that you did on our behalf, you and your task force and staff.
Yes, they did. Thank you.
So again, I think going forward, we can get a series of orders on our business agenda. It may be as simple as motion to approve all of them, but if Corporation Council has a suggestion or you have a suggestion, we're all ears on that.
And if in the meantime, any counselors, I gave most of what we have. There are things like letters of support. Given that we were supplying them all to you at once, it was an enormous amount of documents. If there's particular applications that counselors want to talk through or get more documentation about, please feel free to reach out. I have many documents stored from this and am happy to give you any information that I have.
Thank you. Councilor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You folks are already well into your third hour deliberations this evening. The item that I wanted to bring up to number 6 is the impact fees in regards to tax exempt properties and or other ways to collect some money on such a large portion of our tax base that is considered tax exempt. While this subject to me is important, it is not urgent. And if it's the will of the council, I would be okay with moving this out to another informational meeting that maybe not has run quite so long.
I think everybody's okay with that.
I thought they might be. I know it was a very thorough and dare I say a little exhausting presentation on the opioid grants. I think it was well done. But I think we should end it on a high note. And I know that there's good support in the council if we can find some other way to bring in some more revenues from our existing, especially the tax exempt properties. But I also know it's going to probably be an involved conversation in regards to how we're really going to do that. So everybody go home. Have a great night. Drive careful.
Well, thank you. Before we break, let me ask the city manager if he would make just a few remarks about the revaluation process. I know that we're all getting some feedback about that and wondering about when the mill rate's going to be established and the bills going out and all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether, if you would be willing to just kind of clarify things, where things stand presently, what people can expect.
Certainly, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, Haley's next to me, and we're fielding the same types of calls you're receiving on a regular basis. Haley's done a good job as she gets questions. She's putting out information on social media and answering questions as we go. But I guess I'll just kind of start with, as we all know, this process began in 2025. At the beginning, we allotted funds for the revaluation. The process with that is for KRT, who we went out to RFP and they were awarded the bid, comes in and they look at first residential property and then commercial property. So The process, they're still finalizing the commercial property end of it, and they're still, the residential side is completely done, but they're having their hearings now. And that we're finding, and that's typical in that process, is people are finding discrepancies in their homes, and that's what this process is designed to do. So we won't know and can't know the actual overall value of all of the properties combined, which is what allows us to set the mill rate. We won't know that until all of those figures are gone through and finalized, right? So we want to give everybody that chance if they have an issue to be heard. So that is the process, and unfortunately, that is the timeline where we're on a fiscal year. Calendar year would be a little bit different, but our fiscal year starting in July 1 is why where we're at in the process. Nothing has deviated. Every year, we commit our taxes in August, and we set the mill rate in August. So we're not behind in any of that. It just has a revaluation part to it, and I completely agree. I'm a homeowner as well, want to know that it's part of the process is making it difficult. So I can say that I talked to the assessor today. Things are progressing. They're finalizing at least the commercial side. The hearings with KRT end July 31st. So those will be wrapped up, and we expect to have something around the second week of August is where we'll be looking to be in that timeline of having a mill rate set, committed, and then folks will know. So it's imperative that we have that exact number, because the more value our municipality has, right? When we started out with a mill rate the way it is currently in our current or our FY26 budget, we're at 24. Was our mill rate, and that's what it was set at. When we worked our budget process that we're in currently for FY27, if you remember, we were estimating right around 15. I can say we're consistent with that, with the numbers that I'm seeing, but it could fluctuate, a bit. So until we commit that number, and the more value we have, right, at a 24 mill rate, our overall value in this city was about 2.1 billion. That's commercial, that's residential, that's personal property within business property, things like that. And we're in the about $3 billion to $3.1 billion range is what we're looking at right now. And the higher that number goes up, the lower the mill rate is the way that works. So we obviously want to have that set. We want to give people the chance to have had their hearings, to ask the questions that they want to ask, that they deserve to ask, and get those numbers right before we commit the taxes. So that's the best we can say, is it is progressing along. It's not significantly behind. And as you have questions, we are monitoring our social media. We are seeing questions. We saw a bunch today that Haley posted answers to, and this was one of them. So continue to ask, continue to post, continue to let us know, and we'll continue to put that information out, and I appreciate the opportunity. Haley?
I will say, as soon as we know what the mill rate is, it will be readily available to everyone.
Yes.
I would love to not get that answer 500 times a day. And I'm excited to, share it out and get as much information as possible. So yes, I am monitoring social media. We're also monitoring the info at augustamaine.gov. Feel free to submit any questions there, and we will field them to whoever they need to be directed to.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'm sure other people appreciate it too. Councilor Lynn?
A couple things. Can we promote the tax club as much as possible, as soon as possible? And then I won't be here for the budget next year, but keep in mind our county tax is assessed to us based on our value. And we've always paid most, and we're probably going to be paying far more next year, a portion of that county budget. So just keep that in mind. It's going to have to brace ourselves for that. Well, you will have to brace yourselves for that. So thank you.
Haley?
So just some clarification. Typically, our tax club deadline is the end of August of every year. The tax club is not something new, but we are promoting it more heavily this year with the circumstances we're in. The clerk's office has extended that deadline to September 30th of 2026. You can apply now, and that is online on the clerk's page, as well as our home page and the treasury page, but that will be available throughout, and there will additionally be an insert in everybody's tax bills with that information as well.
Anything else on this subject?
Oh, not in this.
Okay. Done with reval. Okay. Council Michu, announcements?
Yes, I would like to remind everybody that the city of Augusta this weekend will be hosting the Ironman, and several thousand people have filled the hotels, will be filling the restaurants, and we will be on display for the next 3 or 4 days, starting tomorrow night with the welcome party down at Front Street, followed by on Saturday, if there is a great event going on at Mill Park, there'll be a Maine-made craft fair with a beer tent and all kinds of entertainment and children's activities, and that'll go from 9 to 5, and that will lead into the big race on Sunday, where I think we have in excess of 2,100 athletes participating. So, you know, this is a premier weekend for the city of Augusta, and it sounds like, and again, I've been going around, the city looks like it's ready. It looks really, really clean, and we look forward to hosting these athletes, their support staff, and their families.
Thank you. Others? Councilor Lind?
August 5th, 6 p.m. here in City Center down in the Learning Gallery. The Bicycles and Pedestrian Safety Committee will be meeting. I have a feeling there may be some additional guests given some recent incidents in the city. That's been a serious subject for quite a while, but it's August 5th, 6 p.m. Right here in City Center down on the first floor.
Thank you. There is no meeting next week? Correct. So our next meeting will be a business meeting on August 6th. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.